WFLA Now will begin momentarily. WFLA Now will begin momentarily. Breaking news on WFLA Now. Here is JB Buno.
Idaho murder suspect Bryan Kohberger leaving the courtroom after agreeing to waive his extradition, sending him back to Idaho to answer to 4 first-degree murder charges. And now just into the WFLA Now Stream Center, a feed from Pennsylvania, where Pennsylvania State Police will be speaking momentarily, giving their very latest on the case. JB here with you live, folks, on WFLA Now, alongside my colleague, WFLA's Josh Benson, hanging out with us here in the Stream Center. Again, the very latest on this story on WFLA.com, the WFLA app. We just got in the feed moments ago from Pennsylvania State Police. They are going to be speaking. They have called a press conference here today. The exact reason for their press conference, I believe, I guess we'll find out here momentarily, but the exact reason why they are calling a press conference wasn't made exactly clear. They just want to discuss details, questions that they have been being asked about the apprehension of Bryan Kohberger, wanted, of course, and the suspect in the University of Idaho stabbing deaths. So this is the feed here in the center of your screen. We're about 5 to 10 minutes away, Josh.
Yep. Yeah, and we just heard the actually watched, obviously, the video of Kohberger coming in and out of the hearing, the extradition hearing. A lot of people asking what happened inside of that hearing, and I'm starting to see some of the notes from some of the reporters. Bradley Warren's a reporter out there who was in the courtroom. He said, he kept looking at his mom and his sisters. At some point, he mouthed out something to them that was unclear, but he said that he made the decision voluntary, nothing more than yes, and I understand. We also found out that Ann Taylor will be the public attorney in Idaho when he is extradited back to the state of Idaho. So we're getting a few details of what happened during that hearing, as well as what's going to happen once he's extradited in terms of his defense.
So just confirming, so a public defender in Idaho.
Ann Taylor is her name, right?
Right. So, so a public defender representing him in Pennsylvania, and then, of course, a public defender representing him in Moscow, Idaho. As we see here, look at the size of the group of media that have assembled here in the room. Really not all that surprised considering the magnitude of the case. But as soon as this press conference gets underway, we will, of course, turn up the audio. We will listen in, and we'll take you here live, full screen. And in the meantime, what we'll do is we'll answer some questions here out of the YouTube Live comment section. We're about to relaunch on Facebook Live. Jordan asking, hashtags for us both, do you think that because he studies criminology, he has a plan? I would imagine that the plan is very fluid and coming together. This is something that is going across now a couple of different states, but does his degree in criminology inform him on having a plan? We really don't know the answer to this question.
Well, I think, and the bigger question is, he's dealing with public defenders. Does he not have an attorney, nor maybe doesn't have the money to afford an attorney, a high-profile attorney that's going to come out and represent him in this case? No bigger, higher profile attorney has come to say, I want to represent this person as of what we're learning, because this Ann Taylor, this chief public defender in Kootenai County, if I'm pronouncing that right, will be the one representing him. So, as you said, JB, from Pennsylvania to Idaho. He's dealing with public defenders. So as far as having a plan from criminology, I mean, it's too early to tell, what his plans are. Does he have a knowledge of, well, we're not going to go down that route because I could easily go down that route. But I think a lot of people on social media have gone down that route. What does he know from his degree in criminology or his PhD studies? What does he know about situations like this? It's all speculation. And I think right now, all he needs to focus on is getting the defender in place, going to Idaho and trying to exonerate himself from these charges. I think that's primarily the focus.
We will, a lot of these questions are going to become more clear over time, and really, we might get some answers in this press conference. Which, again, I'll admit, I'm a little, I'm curious as to really what the exact subject matter is going to be for this press conference. But I guess we're going to find out here momentarily. Police have something to say, and of course we're going to be listening with our pens on the ready to take notes, because this is now leaving the Pennsylvania arena and going into the legal arena in Idaho, and that's where this story will continue from this point forward. So, also too, have we heard any details on when the extradition is actually going to begin? I believe the way that it works, and I'm not speaking here with a high degree of confidence, but a relatively moderate degree of confidence in that. Idaho arranges for, of course, the extradition to the actual transport from one state to the other. It's something that really Idaho is responsible for. So look, we might find that out by the end of today as to, is he going to be flying? Is it going to be a drive?
And the judge said the limit is 10 days. So it has to be done within 10 days. Sometimes this happens within 72 hours is what I've been seeing a lot of. So yeah, it's going to come down. And the suspect, I would imagine you'd want to get there as quickly as possible, because to avoid having to sit in jail any longer in Pennsylvania. I think we'll see it in the next few days. Personally, that's what I think is going to happen.
True crime junkie, #KJB. I thought that for sure he would have a high profile lawyer to represent him. I wonder if that is going to change.
I was talking to my wife about this last night, and she made a good point. She's like, maybe he doesn't have the money. I mean, he's a student. Maybe he just doesn't have, if you ask yourself, if you were committed of a crime right now, do you have access to money to hire they could cost in the hundreds of thousands of dollars on a retainer, depending on how big of an attorney you get. So yeah, maybe that's the case, or maybe a higher profile attorney will come in to offer to do it and to be on his defense team. We've seen that in the past. So, I mean, just the fact that we have a name now as a public defender, I mean, that doesn't necessarily mean that's who it's going to be through the proceedings.
Yeah, will there be, an attorney taking this pro bono? I mean, my goodness, I guess, look, a lot of that is going to be answered in the days and weeks ahead. But
you got to believe there's a lot of defense attorneys out there wanting to make a name for themselves who said this is one of the biggest cases now in the world that people are talking about. I'm going to hitch my wagon to it and try to get this guy off the charges.
Yeah, I mean, an arrest affidavit,
that's not far-fetched,
getting released, and then the evidence becoming more clear might also attorneys far and wide are going to be looking at that arrest affidavit to see just exactly how much
what they're dealing with, right?
Yep.
So where is this now? Is this the police headquarters?
Yeah, let me get the exact location.
Police?
I'm gonna get the exact location.
That's a tiny room.
This is the Monroe County District Attorney's Office in Stroudsburg, PA. So the same county, so not too far away. In fact, reporters might be heading over to this location, going from the courthouse over here. Who knows? Excuse me. So this is about to get underway. We'll continue to answer some questions while we have another, really, it's 4:29, so that snuck up on me. This will begin momentarily. Let's bring up our audio here for the first time. And here are
they're starting.
Pennsylvania State
right
Police.
On time. I love it.
And let's listen in.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Lieutenant Adam Reed. I'm the Director of the Communications Office with the Pennsylvania State Police. Thank you for joining us here. The order of speakers is going to be our Pennsylvania State Police Commissioner, Colonel Robert Ivanchik, Major Christopher Paris, he's our Area 3 Commander, and First Assistant District Attorney, Monroe County, Mike Mancuso. After the speakers have finished, we will then take a handful of questions. Colonel Ivanchik.
Good afternoon. I'm Colonel Robert Ivanchik, Commissioner of the Pennsylvania State Police. While I monitored the investigation into the horrific murders of the University of Idaho students, I did not imagine the investigation would lead to the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. My heart goes out to the families of the victims, their friends, the community of Moscow, and the University of Idaho. No words can heal the pain associated with the loss of a child. Their young lives were ended far too soon. In law enforcement, we understand the best thing we can do for victims and their families is to follow every lead, collect every piece of evidence, and bring those responsible to justice. I am proud of the members of the Pennsylvania State Police who were able to help in this investigation. The cooperative relationship between our local, state, and federal partners stands the test of time. The officers, troopers, and federal agents work together tirelessly, putting in long, difficult hours. Communication and cooperation are imperative to success and to ensure the integrity of the case remains maintained. The culmination of that cooperation ultimately led to take the suspect into custody and afforded the families some sense of peace they deserve. I want to thank the Moscow Police Department, the Idaho State Police, and our partners in the Federal Bureau of Investigation for their support, assistance, and coordination. I also want to recognize the Monroe County District Attorney's Office. And finally, I need to acknowledge the members of the Pennsylvania State Police, specifically members of Troop N, our Bureau of Criminal Investigation, and our Bureau of Emergency and Special Operations, who assisted in safely taking the suspect into custody in the early morning hours of December 30th. As previously indicated by Chief James Fry of the Moscow Police Department, specific details regarding this investigation cannot be released until the suspect is extradited to Idaho and presented with the probable cause affidavit. At this time, I will turn the microphone over to Major Christopher Paris, Commander of Area 3, who was involved in the coordinated efforts to take the suspect into custody.
Thank you, Colonel. Area 3 comprises troops F, P, N, and R, and is made up of 1,000 approximately of the women and men, civilian and enlisted, in the northeastern part of Pennsylvania. I'd like to introduce to my left Captain Norm Kramer, who's the commander of Troop N Hazleton, which is comprised of Carbon, Monroe, Columbia, and parts of Luzerne counties. I would like to reiterate, as the colonel said, that Idaho law prohibits any release of information contained within the affidavits. So we're going to do our best today to talk about what phase we are currently in the investigation. And it has entered a new phase with the waiver for extradition. And the continuing primary goal is the seeking of justice through successful prosecution and conviction, bearing the burden of proof beyond a reasonable doubt. So with that in mind, we're trying to balance essentially two things: the public's desire for information against the need to maintain the integrity of the investigation and protect the suspects, accused at this point's due process. So I'll now attempt to give you an operational picture with the best information I can release at the time. So this begins when the Pennsylvania State Police Bureau of Criminal Investigation troopers were contacted by the FBI about assisting with surveillance of the accused in this case. I'd like to take the opportunity to specifically thank several individuals. Special Agent in Charge Jackie McGuire and Assistant Special Agent in Charge Dave Carter from the Philadelphia Field Division, as well as Supervisory Special Agent Bill Vigorito of the Scranton RA. We're very lucky in PSP to have a collaborative relationship with the Bureau, both in Pennsylvania and beyond, and their people are absolutely excellent. So as the investigation progressed, Troop N Criminal Investigation Section, commanded by Captain Kramer over my left shoulder here, began to collaborate with authorities in Idaho. Specifically, I'd like to acknowledge Lieutenant James Curto, who was here today, Sergeant Anthony Ferdinand, Corporal John Chulak, who is not present with us, and Troopers Leary and Knoll, who are here with us today. It was through this collaboration and the charges pending in Idaho that those troopers were able to obtain search warrants and a fugitive justice warrant that was prepared here in Monroe County for the location in Chestnut Hill Township and the fugitive from justice warrant for Mr. Kohberger, respectively. I'd like to acknowledge the Monroe County District Attorney, David Christine, as well as First Assistant Mike Mancuso and their entire office. The support that we received was absolutely excellent. Once those warrants were obtained, the Bureau of Emergency and Special Operations, BESO, coordinates our Special Emergency Response Team, CERT. They were selected to serve those warrants, the 3 search warrants and the fugitive from justice warrant. To define what CERT is, it's a full-time tactical team maintained by PSP to deal with high-risk warrant situations, barricades, and other incidents requiring specialized tactical training or other capabilities. From their perspective, we essentially task them to go out and serve a arrest warrant for someone accused of a quadruple murder. They're activated several hundred times a year throughout the Commonwealth. We don't typically hear of their work in a forum like this because they serve the warrant, the person's taken into custody, and they go about their assignment. They are the ultimate professionals. It's a volunteer team. They're highly trained and highly motivated. Captain Norm Kramer over my left shoulder was assigned as the top comm for the CERT activation, which means he was responsible for coordinating our tactical preparations. So tactical assets were then staged in the county, in Monroe County, into the evening of Thursday, December 29th, last Thursday. And in the early hours of Friday, December 30th, those warrants were executed at the location. Mr. Kohberger was taken into custody without incident. The scene was turned over to the FBI Evidence Response Team for processing. Mr. Kohberger was then turned over to the Monroe County Prison, where he has remained in their custody since. I'd like to thank the Monroe County Sheriff and the Stroud Regional Police Department for their support as well during the extradition process. Arrangements currently are being made to deliver Kohberger back to Idaho, where he can have continued due process and face these charges. So it's with that, I will turn it over to First Assistant Mike Mancuso.
Thank you, Major. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Mike Mancuso with the DA's office, the First Assistant District Attorney. I want to give my condolences to the families of the victims out in Idaho for their loss. It's my sincere hope that this marks a clear step in the right direction of effectuating justice for those folks. My office's role was relatively recent. We weren't advised of the presence of the defendant in our county until only a couple days before the apprehension of the defendant. But when we were told, we came together and worked very closely with Captain Kramer, who did an excellent job in almost like a clockwork operation. Part of my duties were to ensure that 3 separate search warrants were issued. Those affidavits attached to those search warrants are still under seal, so I can't discuss their contents with you. But one was for the person of Mr. Kohberger, collecting DNA and photographs, that sort of thing. One was for the white Elantra vehicle, which I understand has been seized and is being processed. And one was for the address, the residence itself that he was living in with his family. I was at the scene, and I have to say that Major Paris and Captain Norm Kramer did an outstanding job in coordinating the efforts, not only of the numerous Pennsylvania State police troopers there, but officers from other jurisdictions and disciplines within those jurisdictions to make this a very smooth, highly competent professional operation. It is a quirk, apparently. It's not in the norm of the states I'm familiar with that Idaho does not release their probable cause affidavit in support of their arrest warrant until after their defendant is returned to that state. But having read those documents and the sealed affidavits of probable cause, I definitely believe that one of the main reasons the defendant chose to waive extradition and hurry his return back to Idaho was the need to know what was in those documents. So that's a significant development. Beyond that, looking at the scope of the situation and the ties this defendant has to my county, I would hold our office at the disposal of the Idaho authorities to help facilitate a complete background investigation into the defendant, both activities prior to the murders occurring within the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania and his activities after the murders in Pennsylvania. So we stand ready to assist with that effort on an ongoing basis. Thank you.
We can now open it up for questions.
Can you tell us what state police specifically did, or can you give us any indication as to the operations of state police when you were notified? And you talk about putting tactical in the area. How long were they there? And what's the?
We're not in a position to give you an exact time. It was at some point prior to when the surveillance was taken, as the investigation progressed to a point where search warrants could be obtained, and the probable cause for those search warrants and an arrest warrant, a fugitive from justice warrant based on the arrest warrant out in Idaho were obtained. We began to take the tactical steps to plan to serve them.
Were you collecting evidence prior to his arrest?
At this point, like we said, it's very much pertinent to what's in the affidavits, which we cannot speak about.
What's it about his demeanor when the arrest actually happened?
Present sense impression, as likewise ongoing investigation, can't discuss it.
How, Robin 69 News, how is Kohberger being transported back to Idaho?
Those arrangements are being discussed right now, as well as the logistics. The court order says, those of you who heard it today, it's within the next 10 days. So we're currently working on that in coordination with authorities out in Idaho. Sir, I can't comment. I don't know.
Is he being held in the Monroe County jail until he's extradited, or is he removed to another?
No, he is lodged in since he was dropped off there Friday morning. He's resided in Monroe County Prison.
Still, until he's
Correct, yes.
extradited, he'll be there. Are the marshals moving him, or which group?
At this point, that's still being coordinated between the state police and the authorities out there. We don't know.
Will the affidavit be unsealed when he arrives in Idaho?
I don't want to speak out of my lane. When I watched the press conference on Friday at 1 p.m. Pacific time, I was alerted to the fact that according to Idaho state law, that the affidavits have to be served to him once he's extradited back before they could be unsealed.
Did he say that anyone else been arrested?
Ongoing investigation.
Has the motive been determined?
I can't comment on that either. I apologize.
Who transports him, sir? Does Pennsylvania State Police, the Monroe County Sheriff's Department?
He's presently back. He was transported from the courthouse by Monroe County Sheriff, and the logistics of who's going to transport him out to Idaho are still being discussed. We don't know. Yeah.
Can you confirm the time of his arrest and how much law enforcement presence there actually was?
I would say it was in the early morning hours of Friday, December 30th. Tactical assets on scene were probably in the neighborhood of 50.
Were you afraid he was going to get tipped off before you got him?
I would say overall about this entire operation, and the credit goes, this is a part that the state police played humbly. You look at Moscow Police Department, 38 sworn, 19,000 leads, the video evidence that they had to develop in order to put that out, all public source information. But when you talk about the service of a high-risk warrant for someone who's committed or alleged to have committed 4 homicides, there's nothing routine about that. And all of those tactical steps that were taken were in conjunction with the best efforts of the authorities, local, state, and federal, both in Idaho and here, to ensure that we could do it safely and to ensure that we could get him into custody and that those service of the search warrants could occur.
Sir, can we ask you a question of the first assistant district attorney? Mr. Mancuso, you described having read to a degree the contents of that affidavit of probable cause, and that you possibly speculated or theorized that he wanted to get back to read that as well, since he can't read that. Can you give us an indication, though, of the seriousness of what he did read? I know you can't talk about it, but can you share with us something?
Yeah, I can't get into the details, sir, but I can say it involved the defendant's connection to a scene of a crime consisting of 4 murdered people. So that's the significance of it.
Can you confirm that there is a connection between Bryan Kohberger and any of the victims?
I can't discuss that.
How confident are you that he is guilty of these crimes?
That wouldn't be my place to say. Certainly confident enough that there was ample probable cause for the issuance of the various warrants in the case.
What was your reaction when you heard this? You've all talked about, you followed this. This happened states away. When you get that call, or you all get the call that this person could be right here in your home area, what's your reaction?
Well, I was surprised, really, Monroe County of all places. It hits close to home. It's a normal human reaction, I would think, under the circumstances.
Do you know when he and his father left Idaho or Washington and drove to Pennsylvania, what that date was?
No, I don't know the exact date, ma'am.
Approximately, we understand the middle of December, is that correct?
I think that's approximate.
And what about, we had heard reports that they were stopped not once but twice on the highway. Can you elaborate?
I'll defer to his Pennsylvania public defender on that.
Do you have reason to believe that Kohberger is connected to other crimes and unsolved mysteries in the area?
I wouldn't answer that question at this time.
We start looking at some that may be unsolved where these are around.
That would be a normal thing to do.
Question for the BSP here. Said he was taken without incident. Was it safe to say that, I shouldn't say it's safe to say, but did it seem like he was expecting?
I wouldn't comment on what his present sense was. I would just comment that the professionalism of the CERT team and their tactical training definitely proved in a situation like this to do it in the most tactically sound and fastest way possible.
Was there anybody else in the house at the time?
His parents were in the house at the
Did
time.
they say anything to you?
Again, present sense impression. I can't comment on that ongoing investigation.
You went down the door.
Force was used. The warrants were issued for evening search warrants, which in Pennsylvania requires additional probable cause in order to serve them at the hours of darkness. I would defer to the first assistant to talk about the legal burden that you bear in order to obtain those. But from a tactical standpoint, based upon all of the briefings that we had developed and all of the intelligence we had developed, we thought that was the best time to serve it.
And what tipped off that Pennsylvania was involved with this?
We were alerted by the FBI. Troopers in the Bureau of Criminal Investigation were alerted.
Anything on like his social media pages that tipped anything?
I can't comment. I don't know.
Has he ever been cooperative in this whole process?
Can't comment. Ongoing, like I said. State Police's role here was to serve the warrants and assist with the surveillance, which we've done. We've been part of major investigations. You know, these are men and women who take an oath to protect their communities and the Commonwealth here. We're very humbled with the opportunity that we had, given a case that has really gained international attention to play a small part in it. And our hat is off to Moscow PD again with the size and the complexity of this investigation and the work that they've done to get us here today. And this is only the beginning of the next step.
If it's determined that anyone here in Pennsylvania either helped to conceal or dispose of any evidence, then you would be a part of this case, or would it go to...
I would say that we would pledge whatever support we can for ongoing investigations with the Idaho authorities here in Pennsylvania. Absolutely. We would help them in any way we could.
Were there any weapons found in the home?
I don't want to get into what was actually seized in the house pursuant to the evidentiary nature of it.
Can you give any insight into why you all decided to go in overnight to make the arrest?
Those are tactical decisions in terms of base surveillance. I don't want to give out too many tactical factors that go into that situation, but obviously surveillance was conducted and we wanted to go in at a time when we thought it would be the safest for everybody, safest for anybody else in the house, safest for Mr. Kohberger, and safest for our people.
There was an interesting question asked earlier about the care that needed to be taken to not tip the suspect off. Could you describe how long that lid had to be on things and how many people were involved in it? Like how many people knew and for how long?
So I would say, I would answer the question this way. I don't want to get into a timeline in terms of when we were notified by the FBI and when the surveillance began. Obviously, we know on Thursday night into Friday morning is when the warrants were served. I would say, as a credit to the professionals, both standing behind me and others not here, many others not here, the information was held very close. And we did not want to have any situation where Mr. Kohberger potentially would be tipped off. So as a result of that, I would say a close number of approximately 7 to 8 individuals, maybe 10 on the most within the PSP side of this operation knew about it.
And for days, can we say? Or?
I would say for a period of time. I would not feel comfortable commenting any more than that for a period of time. And then as the tactical assets were brought in, people were briefed.
When the movement plan is finally decided, will there be an announcement? Will
Not from the state police, so we would defer to Moscow and the authorities in Idaho.
when he starts leaving Pennsylvania?
Well, we have security concerns now, obviously, to move any prisoner. Anytime you move somebody from a secure prison to another place, we don't want to. There won't be an announcement from the state police in terms of those logistics, but they're being worked on right now.
Can you give us your best guess when you think he might be moved roughly? Tomorrow?
We would like to do it as soon as possible, but the court order says 10 days. We have 10 days to coordinate it.
Can you possibly be on a plane tonight? Is it possible he could be on a plane tonight? That's a possibility, right?
I would think that's probably not likely.
Private plane, or would you fly commercial?
We're looking into that right now.
Can you confirm or deny that a window was broken in order to gain access into the home?
There were multiple windows that were broken, I believe, to gain access, as well as multiple doors. I think the video of the house after the fact confirms that. And that would all be part of the tactical plan based on the floor plan of the house, et cetera, and what the CERT operators would do to serve those warrants.
Was the suspect on your radar before, and are you looking at any connections?
I wouldn't comment on that based on the ongoing nature.
But how about did he have a criminal past? According to the UJS, I didn't see anything.
I can't comment on a person's criminal history during an ongoing investigation.
Sorry, Mr. Mancuso said that you stand ready to assist in giving you a complete background of the defendant. What specifically is law enforcement interested in?
That'll be the last question after Mr. Mancuso answers.
In any case of this nature, and I prosecuted a fair share of homicides, double homicides, that sort of thing. You want to look at any evidence of possible motive. You want to look at any evidence of a pattern of modus operandi or method. You want to get into the subject's character, mental state to the best you can, that sort of thing. So it'll be an all-encompassing effort, which we stand ready for. Okay.
How do you do this?
We have our ways. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Just for a quick spelling, I'll give everyone the spelling of everyone's name. It was included in the media advisory, but just so we have it. So Colonel's last name is Ivanchik, Evanchik. First name is Robert. Major Paris, his last name is spelled just like the city, Paris. First name Christopher. And the first assistant district attorney's last name is spelled Mancuso. So, CERT, Special Emergency Response Team. CERT. Thanks, everyone.
Breaking news on WFLA Now. Here's JB Buno.
Pennsylvania police discuss the arrest and the apprehension of Idaho murder suspect Bryan Kohberger, who has waived his right or waived for extradition. He will be transported to Idaho to answer to the first-degree murder charges within the next 10 days. Pennsylvania police saying there at the very end of the press conference that is unlikely to happen tonight. Hello there to you, folks. JB here with you live on WFLA Now. Josh Benson is live on the air. What do we got? Yeah, 5 would think we're clear. Yeah, we're clear on 5. Just talking here, folks, about some of the feeds that are coming in. I believe that is going to be the final live feed that we have from Pennsylvania, but a lot to go over that we just learned. There was, of course, I think based on a majority of the subject matter and a majority of what we learned at this press conference was just how highly coordinated this effort was by the tactical teams that went in to arrest Bryan Kohberger without incident. Again, at his Pennsylvania residence after the drive back to Idaho from the drive back to Pennsylvania from Idaho with his dad. You heard them also answer questions as to whether or not he was pulled over with his dad in Indiana a couple of times, because Jason Labar, the chief public defender, indicated that to Fox News. Of course, that was asked during the press conference. But a majority of what we learned here over the course of this press conference was that this was a highly tactical and highly coordinated and professional effort to bring in Kohberger without any incident whatsoever. This is a tactical team that was used for high-risk situations. The arrangements are being made. They are looking at flight options to get Kohberger back to the state of Idaho. But the perhaps the most interesting moment, at least to me, and I queued this up over the course of the press conference, the most interesting part of the press conference to me comes from Mike Mancuso of the district attorney's office, when he talked about why exactly Kohberger would be, in his words, wanting to get back to Idaho to answer to the charges. Let's listen into that moment here.
It is a quirk, apparently. It's not in the norm of the states I'm familiar with that Idaho does not release their probable cause affidavit in support of their arrest warrant until after their defendant is returned to that state. But having read those documents and the sealed affidavits of probable cause, I definitely believe that one of the main reasons the defendant chose to waive extradition and hurry his return back to Idaho was the need to know what was in those documents. So that's a significant development.
Again, Mike Mancuso with the Monroe County District Attorney's Office saying that he wanted to, that he would imagine that Kohberger would want to hurry up to get back to Idaho to fully understand what is the probable cause against him, what is in that arrest affidavit, really what is the evidence that they have against him connected to this crime. So that was most of this press conference was very much focused on the tactical efforts that were used to apprehend Kohberger, but that was particularly interesting about the fact that this is sealed and sealed to even Kohberger, according to Mancuso. And so as far as knowing the evidence against him, that is something that is going to happen when the document is unsealed upon the conclusion of the extradition process. So a lot of questions that still exist, but Kohberger will not be extradited tonight, based, of course, on the degree of confidence that we just heard there from the colonel with the Pennsylvania State Police, that it's very highly unlikely that the effort gets coordinated tonight to get him back to the state of Idaho. Why is everybody so, of course, glued to when the extradition is going to take place? Because when the extradition takes place, those documents are unsealed and hopefully with minimal redactions, so that the public and so that we can learn what the evidence is against him. Folks, we're going to stay here with you live a little bit longer on WFLA Now and talk with you here a little bit. Get to some of your questions and comments here in the WFLA Now Stream Center. If any new feeds pop up, they're right here on the screen over here. I'm able to monitor it. I don't think that they have voted for a new House Speaker just yet, have they? That's also on my feeds over here. That process currently ongoing in Washington, D.C., also on WFLA.com, the WFLA app. So we'll stay here with you in the Stream Center, and I'm going to answer questions. If it has hashtag KJB, of course, I can animate it on screen and talk with you guys and bring up and spotlight the comment. Josh Benson, if you're looking for Josh, he is on air right now. He's on the anchor desk on WFLA News Channel 8. So let's see what comments we've got coming in. So let's go to Rose's comment, hashtag KJB. I still don't understand why and how the two roommates got so lucky and the other four people in the home didn't. There's so many things that even with all the answers make no sense at all. You know, Rose, I think, you say that with all the answers, but really what answers do we have? We have such a scarce amount of information. So we have a answer, and a answer is, who do police believe is responsible for the crime? They believe that Bryan Kohberger is the person responsible for the crime. Excuse me. So, but really, most of this story and really the motive and the connection still eludes us. Fox News has been doing a lot of interviews with the victims' families. And Steve Gonzalez, the father of Kaylee Gonzalez, said that their family is still looking for that connection, and there's been some inconsistent messaging when it comes to whether or not there was a connection of some kind between Kaylee and between Bryan Kohberger. The initial report that came out was that there was some kind of a connection, and now the fact that a connection doesn't exist, according to her father, that of course we're still trying to get to the bottom of that. And I think really too, based on what what Kaylee's family is saying, they too are still trying to get to the bottom of that as well. So let's go over some other comments. Thea, okay, I'm just gonna say Thea. Hashtag HeyJB. Does Idaho allow cameras in their courtrooms? We had a commenter earlier who was talking about that they did some homework and they looked up and they said that that it's up to the judge, but mostly Idaho does allow courtroom access. And I have not done that research yet. The policies per state are all very unique. Sometimes it can come down to the individual judge and the judge's determination as to whether or not they want to allow courtroom access. Sometimes it can come down to state by state. Sometimes it can come down to county by county. Some places it'll come down to courtroom or judge to judge. So we'll when we get a more clearer idea of these hearings and when they're scheduled, we will the process will take shape as far as getting availability. If you've been with us here before on stream, you've probably heard me go on my soapbox and talk quite a bit about how I am all in favor of courtroom access. That given that so many of us connect to court cases now virtually, the idea that somebody can physically be in the courtroom, but that we can't witness what unfolds in a courtroom from a distance away, it makes very little sense to me. If somebody has a direct connection to a case and they want to be there among the general public, but physically or from a health standpoint they're unable to do so, shouldn't they be afforded the same opportunity to be in that courtroom as somebody who was physically able to do so? That's just one of the many scenarios and reasons as to why I believe that courtroom access for cases needs to catch up with the times. We, of course, have had some cases that gives us really just unprecedented levels of access and unprecedented levels of exposure. Look at what happened with Johnny Depp and Amber Heard last year, when you had the entire world focused on even the slightest eyebrow twitch from either Amber Heard or Johnny Depp. I am all in favor of courtroom access. If the hearing is open to the public, it should be open to the public and the public at large. That's just my 2 cents on it. And we'll find out more with Idaho. Ashley Myers, hashtag HeyJB. Do you think it will be within 72 hours, but they are trying to protect him for transport? Look, number one priority is to do so safely without incident. Should be a smooth process. No surprises of any kind to get him from one state to the other. So of paramount importance is just the security and the safety of all those involved with this transport. And that's probably going to be the focal point either tonight or tomorrow when they start to have conversations about the process. Now, however, I'll just say this: I would be shocked if he's not there by the end of the week. I'd be shocked. They have 10 days, so they have till the 13th, the end of next week. But I'd be really surprised if the extradition wasn't done by the end of this week. I think Pennsylvania is ready to put this in the rearview mirror. They want to get this coordinated. They want to do it as quickly as possible. If they're looking at flight options, they want to look. It's going to be over in a matter of hours. A flight from Pennsylvania to Idaho. I mean, that would probably, it depends on whether or not they go commercial or whether they fly private. If it's commercial, I don't know if there's many direct flights from Eastern PA directly to Moscow, Idaho. However, yeah, if it's done commercially, it's probably the entirety of a day. If they arrange for direct transportation privately, that will be done in a matter of hours. The flight from Pennsylvania, Idaho is probably no more than 5 hours long. So it could be a relatively quick process, but they just have to figure out the logistics of getting him from one place to the other. But yeah, I'll admit, I would be very surprised if this wasn't done by the end of the week. Sister Moon, that's a very kind comment. I just want to say thank you. I see that. Thank you very much. Okay, so okay. Everyone's telling me to go check out Brian Enton's Twitter. Oh, wow. Just now got the body cam video from the traffic stop involving Kohberger and his dad while they were driving through Indiana. Going to play it back at 5 o'clock on News Nation. Wow. Okay. Very interesting. Very interesting. So the body camera video from the traffic stop in Indiana, again, Jason Labar, the chief public defender from Monroe County, saying that Kohberger and his dad, they got pulled over twice in Indiana on the way back in mid-December from Idaho into PA. So now there was first Indiana State Police saying we have no record of it, which doesn't mean it didn't happen. It just means that that an officer or a deputy or a trooper pulled over somebody and just didn't make a record of it, because how often does it happen where somebody gets pulled over and they're they're let off with a warning? That happens thousands of times a day. So very interesting that just like that, the body camera video is about to be released. As soon as we have it, we'll play it back. In fact, I'm just going to look right now. I might have access to it. Brian Enton and I, so Brian works at News Nation. I'm here at WFLA. We're under the same parent company. So Brian and I are very much allies when it comes to the news world that we live in. We work together because we work for the same company. And so we have access to the same assets. But looking here, it has not been uploaded to this, or is it? Or is this it? Oh, I think this is it. Give me a second, folks. I'm looking at this. Oh, yeah. All right. Interesting. Stand by, folks. I'm gonna show you a little bit of this. Wow. Folks, it would appear the video here has crashed my system. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
State police got your license and registration. What was I stopped you in when you were driving by me there? You're a little too close to back that semi. About one car between you and the back of this trailer. About one car going 10 miles an hour. So you're going 60 or 70 miles an hour. About 6 or 7 cars. Oh, you guys did? Yeah. So. You guys stopped by a trooper? We don't have any SUVs. It was a county guy. Was it like a black SUV? Yeah. Okay. All right. You said you guys were following too closely? Okay. Today? Well, I'm not going to give you guys another ticket or warning if you just got stopped. Just make sure you give yourself plenty of room, okay? So like I said, it's all about how fast you're going, okay? So if you're going 10 miles an hour, you only need one car. Or if you're going, so speed limit here is 7. If you're going 7 miles an hour, you need 7 cars. Yeah. That's the easy way to explain it. Yeah. It's really easy in the B&B man says 2 to 3 seconds. All right, guys, have a safe trip. Where y'all headed? Thank you so much. Where y'all headed to? Where at? Yeah, it's a long haul. You guys scared of airplanes? Did you? Okay. All right, well, hey, peace out, safe trip. Thanks, sir. State police got your license and registration. What was I stopped you in when you were driving by me there? You're a little too close to back that semi. About one car between you and the back of this trailer. About one car going 10 miles an hour. So you're going 60 or 70 miles an hour. About 6 or 7 cars. Oh, you guys did? Yeah. So. You guys stopped by a trooper? We don't have any SUVs. It was a county guy. Was it like a black SUV? Yeah. Okay. All right. You said you guys were following too closely? Okay. Today? Well, I'm not going to give you guys another ticket or warning if you just got stopped. Just make sure you give yourself plenty of room, okay? So like I said, it's all about how fast you're going, okay? So if you're going 10 miles an hour, you only need one car. Or if you're going, so speed limit here is 7. If you're going 70 miles an hour, you need 7 cars. Yeah. That's the easy way to explain it. Yeah. It's really easy in the B&B man says 2 to 3 seconds. All right, you guys have a safe trip. Where y'all headed? Thank you so much. Where y'all headed to? Where at? Yeah, it's a long haul. You guys scared of airplanes? Did you? Okay. All right, well, hey, peace out, safe trip. Thanks, sir. State police got your license and registration. What was I stopped you in when you were driving by me there? You're a little too close to back that semi. About one car between you and the back of this trailer. About one car going 10 miles an hour. So you're going 60 or 70 miles an hour. About 6 or 7 cars. You guys did? Yeah. So. You got stopped by a trooper? We don't have any SUVs. It was a county guy. Was it like a black SUV? Okay, all right. You said you guys following too closely? Okay. Today? Well, I'm not going to give you guys another ticket or warning if you just got stopped. Just make sure you give yourself plenty of room, okay? So like I said, it's all about how fast you're going, okay? So if you're going 10 miles an hour, you only need one car. Right? If you're going, so speed limit here is 7. If you're going 7 miles an hour, you need 7 car miles. Yeah. That's the easy way to explain it. Right? Yeah. It's really easy if you're in the B&B business, it's cheap 20 seconds. All right, you guys have a safe trip. Where y'all heading? Thank you so much. Where y'all heading to? Where at? Yeah, it's a long haul. You guys scared of airplanes? Okay. All right, well, hey, peace out, safe trip. Thanks.